A warm welcome to all my crypto and trading friends. Today there's another detailed analysis video on Bitcoin, Ethereum, as well as various altcoins, which I've already prepared here on the side. I'm not exactly sure how long the video will be, but I want to go through a few things with you because after this massive pump, you can get ready for new possible entries. By now, we've already had some incredible, almost perfect sniper entries on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Link, and Grow, and we'll be analyzing those today as well. But I also want to show you how I plan to proceed from here. If we continue to correct downwards, where do we have new entry points? Of course, we can see them. Liquidation hit me banned. This is going to be very exciting. Don't forget and make sure to keep this in mind. At this point, we have $15 billion in liquidations at a Bitcoin price of around $170,000. That's a lot. That's something I don't think we'll just leave on the table. The only question is, when are we going to collect it? Will we keep pumping and maybe see new all-time highs? Or will we, for some reason, maybe because of some bad news, and that can happen very quickly, see a correction downward to pick all of this up? 15 billion. Don't forget that. That's not a small amount, but we'll go through all of this in detail. I've already shared a bit about it today on Telegram. Not only that, we'll also go through what are the Bitcoin whales doing right now. We can see, and I actually forgot to mention this in my last video, that since September 14th, the big whales who hold more than 10,000 Bitcoins have started accumulating again. But now with the rising price, they're starting to sell off a bit. We'll also take a look at the dolphins, those who hold up to 10,000 Bitcoins, see what they're doing and analyze that in detail as well. Otherwise, all current trades are in profit at the moment. And as I mentioned in the last video, I will gradually sell my Bitcoins. One of the sales might have been a bit early at $115,000. The second was here at $120,000. My average selling price for the half Bitcoin I've sold so far is around $117,000. What I'm speculating on though, is that if we correct and go down, I'll be able to buy back in down here. And as you can see here, I still have a sell order for 0.25 Bitcoin at $124,400, and I'm planning to buy back half a Bitcoin at $107,000. That way, I would definitely make a profit of $5,000 to $7,000, depending on how much I actually buy back at the bottom. Current trades, we can quickly go through those as well. Bitcoin, that's this long trade. It's just a small trade in this case, but it's in profit. Ethereum as well. That one now has just under $500 in profit in total from all of them, and the CRO trade. Then we also have my coin margin trades with Bitcoin, which are now a bit over $3,000 in profit. And then there's my Ethereum trade, which is now about $22,000 in profit. When I will scale it up again, I'll let you know in a separate video because I really see lower prices ahead. So I would only scale it up again then, or I might also consider taking partial profits if we continue to rise. Then we also have Bitunix. On Bitunix, all the current trades are still open, just as I mentioned. First, the Bitcoin trade here is in profit. Then we also have the Litecoin trade, which was just a very small trade, but it isn't taking off the way I had hoped. It's the same with Link, but everywhere I've already set the stop loss to break even, as you can see here in detail. And then the Ethereum trade here as well is currently up about $200. It was also a small position, but I'm going to let it run for now. But here too, I've already taken partial profits several times. We can quickly take a look at the Ethereum trade. So you can see that as we climb higher, I keep taking a bit of profit off the table because I at least expect a small correction while we wait to see if I'm right. Well, I don't want to short right now because if everything is pumping and we don't see a reversal or any sign that things could go down, there's no point in continuing to short. PIONEX trading account. This is my personal account. You can see that all of them are in profit. I've also already closed some from the past. Where do we have the history? There you can also see that all of these are closed. A few smaller ones, a few bigger ones, but all the current ones are doing great in profit. And what we don't see here are these future DCI pots, yes, which I keep running. But in the meantime, I was able to trade this account up from around $700 to $1,214. And we've achieved the same thing with the funded accounts. I want to go back to the futures again. You can see that almost all of them are in profit except for WIF. It just doesn't want to recover. It's down here, but all the others are in profit. And this account as well, as you know, started at $3,000 and has now been traded up to $3,520. And as I've mentioned repeatedly, I'll try to find a way so that the profit generated here can be raffled off to the community because I don't have access to this money, but at least I'd like to give away the profits to you. And then we also have the spot section. There will be a separate video about that soon. What is the best profit per grid interval? And we can clearly see here that the profits are still at 0.8%, but everything below 0.8%. The profits simply turn out lower due to the fees of each trade than if you set the profit per grid at 0.8 to 1%. And you can see that perfectly here, and they've been running for quite some time now. A quick update on the trading bots at the moment, specifically the spot grid DCA. What I still have open here is one more. But in the bot history, as you can see, I had several more open here. The $50,000 bots each ran for 2 to 3 days and realized profits. Why did I do that? Because we've just had such a strong pump in Ethereum that I say, if we go into a correction, then I'll start a new $50,000 bot again. That way I hedge myself a little bit. Then there are also the grid trading bots on Bitget. There's some news here now. Now there is, and I just got access to it today, grid trading bot copy trading on Bitget. Very cool. I would be happy if they introduced that for Martingale as well, because that's really my thing. But in this case, I will also share with you in the future how it works in detail and will make a separate video about it. But now let's get started. Let's dive in before we lose too much time. What are the big whales doing? Everyone with over 10,000 Bitcoins, as I mentioned earlier, has been accumulating heavily. And now, as the price is rising, they're selling off again. But let's take a look at what people with 1,000 to 10,000 Bitcoins are doing. They're actually selling off gradually all the time. It's very interesting to see that they're using the high price we've been seeing to offload their Bitcoins. I'm more like, well, I don't have 1 to 10,000 Bitcoins, but I'm more like those who are also gradually selling off a bit now. But if we take a closer look at this strategy, where do I see the next possible entries? We'll look at that with the liquidation heat map, but also with my trading strategy. You don't know it yet? I recommend it to you. Go to my channel. The simplest trading strategy, and you're still not using it. It's the 3rd best video so far. Only 300 views away from becoming the 2nd best video, and it's only been online for a month. Incredibly good. And I also recommend you check out my 100% passive income on autopilot. That's my strategy, the one I showed earlier, which I'm using here, where I keep pocketing profits. I'm trying to provide you with the best possible value. So a subscription costs you nothing, a like on the video, and a few comments. That's for my peace of mind. But now, back to the analysis. Bitcoin. We had an incredibly good entry down at the 0.618 level. I honestly didn't expect that we would just break through like that. Not with this liquidity, which at the time compared to before was only 10, quote unquote, 10 billion. And now it's over 15 billion or even a bit more. That's why this massive breakout, especially with the US shutdown, actually surprised me a bit. But that's how it is. Now I see the possibility that if we continue to pick up liquidity at the top, or maybe stop rising and start correcting, then I have possible entries here that I will use for a new trade or to scale my current trades. The 0.618 Fibonacci entry at 114,000 looks very, very interesting. And it gets even more interesting when we look at the 3-day heat map, for example, because between 115,000 and just below 114,200 US dollars, there is still a massive amount of liquidity. It would match the 114,454 with the 0.618 level. I don't think we're going to go down there with a single candle and maybe pick up that liquidity, meaning this area here, this demand zone that we have, so that we might dip into it and then rise afterwards. No, that wouldn't be my expectation. Instead, when would I start shorting? Not when the price pumps in like that, but for me, I see a correction, a recovery, and only then a move down into a small target zone where you could have new entries, if it really comes to that. What could that look like? So that we draw the Fibonacci again and then see that 0.5 or 0.618 would be the possible entry to take the short, close it here, and then see if you open a new long here. That would currently be my plan. But we must not forget, we've only looked at the small time frame on the liquidation heat map for 3 days. If we look at a week, we see the following. That at 112,550, there is an incredible amount lying there. You can see this cluster lighting up, but also further down. These would also be filled more and more with new orders the further we fall. That means 112,400 to about 110,000 could be interesting. That would be the Fibonacci 0.786 here. Of course, that would mean if we don't hold that, I would dare to open a new long position here again. However, it could be that due to the massive liquidity down here, we lose all these trades, but when would I not enter them? If I see a dump is happening now because of bad news, then I would rather wait to see roughly how far the price corrects. That's why I'm still a bit cautious. Of course, I will enter the trades if we do correct, but I am also cautious with the new longs then because, and this is exactly what I want to show again now, we see a month, the 1 month chart with the liquidation down there, as you can see here. In the current range, you can see that on a 1 month chart, it only looks like it would go down to about 170,000 US dollars. And even more interesting, where you can see it even better, is when I have the liquidation heat map set to 3 months. Sorry, that's 1 month. I want to switch to 3 months. I want to share this with you. It's very exciting to see. On CoinGlass, you can analyze this incredibly well because down here, right here, you can see how large these clusters are. Here we have another 300 million in this cluster, but we're only talking about Binance here, right? Then another 240 down here, and here also another 88 million in this area. And that's exactly where I placed my order. That's all for Bitcoin for now. We'll have to wait a little longer. I'll provide updates on Telegram because it could also be that so that we, since the current target level we have up here for my trade is at 124,644, which is also where my take profit is. That hasn't been reached yet. And what would be another possible target level at this point if we use the Fibonacci extension for Bitcoin? Since we've reached a bottom here and now have the breakout, we can see that we've actually just gotten the first rejection exactly at the 1.414 Fibonacci level. But the target zones would be 125, 128, 130 if we should actually continue to move higher. The only question is, are we going to move higher without a correction, or will we see a correction first and then continue to move up? A correction would actually be healthy right now. Why would that be healthy? We can also take a look at that in the 1 hour chart. If I remove this from the top again. Because right here we have exactly this breakout. I'm talking about this one here, where we had a breakout to the upside, a small correction, and then we pumped. This breakout could now lead to a retest, which could flush a lot of retail out of the market before we move up again. But I'm not looking to short just yet. I'll keep you updated if I actually decide to do that. Ethereum, similar procedure. Here too, I see an opportunity exactly at this entry, 0.5 to 0.681. Very interesting. Here as well, this breakout actually happened beautifully. There was still a rejection. Hey, that rejection was actually really nice. And then the pump to the upside. I still had a short position open here right in this area. Unfortunately, it got hit by the stop loss. I took a small loss. That's just how it is. It's not that bad because we have the long positions here, which have been open since down here at a price of around $3,977. So we've realized very good profits. Here as well, if we look at the liquidation heat map for Ethereum, the 1 month chart is actually full above us, really full. But if we go into the liquidation map, sorry, not here, but here, and take a look at Ethereum, this is an even smaller time frame of 1 week. You can see that right now we have clusters, with a large cluster still at $4,261. $4,261 would be roughly exactly this area of the 0.5 Fibonacci entry. But that's only if we don't continue to rise. Otherwise, of course, we'd have to move this higher. At the moment, nothing else should happen. It's Saturday, there's low volume, and we have market makers who can cause big moves due to the low volume. But the option would then be to either enter here at around 4,210, which you can of course match up even better here with the liquidation heat map. Or what's also very interesting, because this is an incredibly large cluster and Ethereum has accumulated up to about 10 billion in liquidations around $4,000. But around $4,100 or $4,070 would be roughly the lower area. That means exactly in this level, if we do correct, then we could dip right here, right into this area to possibly see a reversal, just as we've seen on the way down in order to continue rising. Because here too, if we go into the smaller time frames, for example, 3 days or 1 week, we'll now see that quite a bit of liquidity has accumulated below us. Of course, we've just recently pumped in with a lot of retail orders. You can see here that the liquidations around $4,000 are very significant, and you shouldn't overlook that. Bitcoin at 170,000, Ethereum around 4,000. There's quite a lot lying there, and that would roughly coincide with the 0.618 level, but depending on any news that comes in, I'd still be cautious, as we could go a bit lower. Because of the large amount of liquidity below us, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what could drive us downwards. And the question isn't if it will happen, but when it will happen, because I can definitely imagine that we'll keep pumping higher to see new highs, maybe even an all-time high. I don't think I need to analyze growth much. Everything stays as it is for now. We had the rejection at the 0.5 entry. If we look at it now, that was exactly here at $2, at 0.22 US dollars. And at the moment, it's still struggling. But here too, we can see that right now we have a retest exactly here, which will hopefully hold after the high we had, right? Right now we're seeing consolidation, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see if we can hold this level. Here too, we should consider correcting downward again, because now that we've made a new high and a correction is coming in, I might consider it. Let's see how far we go down, whether we can still catch that at this point. The 0.5 level would also be a possible entry here for a correction in order to continue rising. There's not much to say about Litecoin either. It basically finished its pump and is doing its thing. Let's just let it run. Stop loss at break even. Chainlink is exactly the same. I marked a short opportunity here, but I didn't take it because the market was just so extremely bullish, really going full throttle. At least Bitcoin and Ethereum and a few other coins, BNB also really took off. But here too we see 0.618, and that's no coincidence that we're lying exactly at this cluster, and at this point in time are seeing a rejection here. But I'm not ready for a short here either. I'm just going to let this run now with this long position where the stop loss is already at break even. Doge, very interesting. Doge, I also marked that. I didn't take the short at this cluster. But as I said, the momentum was just way too high for me to take too many shorts right now. As you can see here, what I had marked, 0.618, again, at this point in time, a rejection. But I'm not sure if this will hold, because here too, we now have the possibility, if we pull this up, since we've now surpassed this high, if we correct, then I'll remove this other one again, so that we might go into this 0.5 or 0.618 area in order to maybe continue this trend and actually see new highs. Unfortunately, the previous Doge trade was stopped out exactly at the stop loss. That's just how it is. Nothing you can do about it. It's part of the game. Unfortunately, not every trade can be positive. Then we also have HBAR. I think I also saw a very interesting entry opportunity for HBAR earlier. HBAR currently looks bearish. It actually can't make new higher highs anymore, but is making lower highs and lower lows. And even now, yes, this could be a continuation pushing the price further down. Here we had a trade that went into profit, but then was stopped out at break even with a stop loss. And if we look at this here as well, based on the trading strategy, taking the last high to the last low, you can really see again how right on point the 0.5 Fibonacci acted as the reversal zone to the downside at this point in time. That doesn't mean it will stay that way, but there was the first reaction now. If we get a correction, then that would be a reasonable trade. But after Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few other coins dropped so sharply, I haven't opened any further short positions yet. Cardano. That one is also very interesting. I've marked something on the chart. We're in a downtrend channel. We might go up a little bit more and maybe further down, but with Cardano as well, you can see we're making lower lows and lower highs. Among the altcoins, we're currently seeing a very, very similar pattern. And here as well, after we've had this breakout above this price range, if we really get a bullish pump, then I'll have the opportunity to enter again. And you'll see that in a moment. That's also very interesting. I wouldn't go for 0.5 now because of the fair value cap you can see here. That means this long candle here was simply pumped up without us correcting back into it. So for me, the 0.618 would be a valid entry, 0.8081. Here too, we can take another look. If we go in there, what does the liquidation heat map look like and what's at 0.80? What do we have? 0.82 to 0.818. What did I say earlier? 0.80, 0.80.1, so just about 0.81 would be the current level now. Sorry, we can go down a bit. 0.72. 3 days could be possible. Let's also look at 1 week, and on the weekly, there would actually be a lot between 0.77 and 0.76. Where would that be? That would be a bit lower. Yeah, almost. Actually, yes. That would be the 0.786. Here too, I would be cautious. If we correct now, I still wouldn't take these two as entries because of the liquidation heat map. If I open a trade there, of course, I'll share it with you on Telegram again. But as you can see, I don't just blindly enter at every 0.5 or 0.681 when I look at the liquidation heat map and see what could be dangerous. I would take this one. Yeah? That means roughly the 0.82 to about 0.818. That would be the 0.5 to 0.618. So enter once at the lower end of the liquidation. Yes, heat map, which we have, the 0.82. That means I would take the risk here at 0.82, just below the 0.5 entry. If that doesn't hold, then I would wait to see if we get the lower price here and enter again here. We also still have something with Solana. The last target zone we had for Solana, we didn't reach. What I marked up here, we didn't reach. But here too, I now see the possibility, similarly, and this will probably be just like we saw in the previous trades, that if we now get a correction after breaking these lower highs here and now making a new high, we're not out of the woods yet. I have to say that as well. But we do have the possibility, if we continue to correct now, that we could see a correction back to some very interesting zones around 215 to 209 US dollars. If the market, as I said, if the market's momentum remains this strong and we keep rising, then we would simply readjust the Fibonacci. At this point, though, I say, okay, here we have, okay, that's $202 where there's a lot going on. That would be the 0.786 level, which would actually be very interesting. And we can see that here on the weekly basis. If we continue to maintain bullish momentum, let's look at the 3-day basis. Here we were around 221 and about $215. The $215 would be down here. That means it would actually be a clean trade, one I would even be willing to risk at the $215 level. This means that if we really correct down here now, maybe have a small retest to the downside and then go into the $215 area, we might even wick down a bit further and then get a reversal. Here too, we can see very clearly, again, this is after the breakout where we still had a rejection before we broke through. And so far, there haven't been any retests, right? After such breakouts, retests usually follow, which can sometimes take several days to occur. But in this case, there's a possibility that we'll get a nice retest here so we can go long again. This will also be a trade that I will take because it looks very exciting. I'll analyze that in more detail later. Into what? I don't just do this here, but also with the coin class liquidation map, because it also shows us these clusters precisely. Then I also analyze BNB for you. BNB, because it's really taking off at the moment. I mean, it's really doing its thing, right? Far from all the others, it's just accelerating incredibly when it comes to price. And today I took a look at what the target level could be, and we're just entering that right now. That means after this breakout up here, we had the first correction down to here and then continued upward. And if we look at it now, at this moment, we're on our way to our target zones at 1,618 and 1,809. So somewhere between 1,250 and 1,450 US dollars could be the preliminary end to trigger the next correction. And then it will get interesting. Where would the next possible entry be? Either we pull this up here, roughly around here. It depends on how far we rise or whether we correct beforehand. Then it's time to check the liquidation heat map again. Where could we have a good entry point to get back in? And especially BNB, I would short it once we reach this target zone, right? How would I short it? I then wait for us to eventually have a high that gets corrected. And for this correction from the high to go back up again in order to have a possible short-term bearish scenario to enter down here. So again, what do? I then go in, take the last high to the last low, would take the entry here, and then move into my target zone for my new long entry. Exactly, I think that's it for now. If you have any other coins you'd like me to analyze, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I would appreciate it. Leave a few likes, drop some comments, give the algorithm a little push, and see you next time.